Well, hello there. Welcome to the 30th day of July, 2025. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation. This is a live video exercise that I do every morning around 5:30 a.m. to go over my life objectives and principles and measure my last 24 hours against those to see if the day measured up. I also use this time to think about those principles and objectives and to prepare for the coming day. But first, a welcome to new subscribers. A quick bio to say, Kurt here. If you're new to the channel, I'm a 61-year-old retired American guy living in Japan with my Japanese wife here in the house that we bought about a half a year ago, working to live the best life that I possibly can in the years that remain to me, which are probably about. I was actually talking to ChatGPT about this recently, not in this in particular. We were trying to figure out something else, and I learned incidentally that less than 20 years, less than 20 summers left. So I want to make the best use of those 20 summers that I can, and probably a lot less than that if I consider the good years to come, right, where I'm still feeling relatively fit and vital and healthy. But enough of that. Well, there'll be more of that because that's part and parcel of what I do here. Disclaimer, I do talk about sensitive subjects here. I talk about death a lot. It makes people uncomfortable. I know that because they tell me that. But this is my video. This is my personal journal video. So if you don't want to watch over my shoulder, you don't have to watch. If you do want to watch, then leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Criticisms are welcome as well. I'm looking to improve the way that I conduct my business in life, and make a better venture of it, right? Better use of time. And if you see me stumbling in some way that I might be helped along the way, just let me know. I don't read or respond to comments though until I'm done. With that quick temperature check at 5:30, it's probably about 5:40 a.m. right now. It is 24 degrees, just right in the green zone, and 85% humidity. 24 degrees, 85%. Let's make a note here. 24 degrees, 85%. Sun's going to come up. It's going to be clear. It's going to be another hot one. But I am withstanding the heat much better than I was just a week ago. And I know why. And I'll share that reason probably several times in this video. I also do want to say thank you to my YouTube supporters, those who watch my videos, and especially those who are my members on YouTube and my supporters on Patreon. A quick note, I do offer discount codes for my members and Patreon supporters. Check out the associated information with your membership to get those discount codes. If you can't find it, just send me an email at dinnerbytheriver@gmail.com, and I'll send you the code. Permanent discount codes on my eBay store. Now with that, let's jump to it. I'm going to do three things now. I'll talk about the last 24 hours, go over the notes that I had from the day, then we'll go over the creed and one of the principles, and then talk about the coming day. In the last 24 hours, I have two very interesting notes. Let me suffice it to say, yesterday was an incredibly busy day and an incredibly good day. This has been by far the best week since retiring, the best week in Japan, maybe the best week in the last 2 decades of my life. I'm really hitting my stride. I think I found my direction at last. If you follow these videos regularly, you know why. It's because I basically discovered work again. I need to work. I'm retired, but that doesn't mean I don't need the sense of meaningful utilization of time, the validation, if you will, that comes from a good hard day of work, and the sense of fulfillment that comes of earning a buck, right? I enjoy all of those things. No surprise there. I spent my whole life doing just that. Why would I expect myself not to be, even though I hated I hated my jobs, I never really, I get great satisfaction from work. So there's two notes here relative to that. And there's a lot wrapped up in it. I don't think I need to be too wordy though. I think I can build upon my observations from the last couple of days. Let me take a sip as I prepare. Okay, the first note says 2003 all over again. The second note says sleepless night with a smile, he says. Okay, so 2003 all over again requires a little bit of storytelling. In 2000, our daughter Emily was born. In 2002, we decided that we would move to Japan to raise Emily through her small years. We then embarked to unencumber ourselves of the home that we owned near Santa Barbara, California, and we moved to Japan in 2003 as a family to set up life here. Flush with cash from the success of living in the United States, which had been going to California in 1992, and spending a decade there, had been a little bit like a gold miner, a 49er coming to California, the gold rush, and coming back to the saloon with a bag full of gold. That's exactly what it was like. We had come from Japan in 1994 or 5, I think it was, with nothing, and we went back to Japan with, rich millionaires, literally. So coming back to Japan at that time, tons of money, freedom. I gave myself a year to just kind of acclimate to life in Japan. That year did not go very well. The most productive thing I did was I studied Japanese. I went every day, Monday through Friday, to a language school downtown. Where I attended classes, private one-on-one lessons, and I successfully passed the Japanese Language Proficiency Test Level 4, which is the basic introductory level, equivalent to the N5 left test now. So it sounds like I did better than I did, because the N4 now sounds like it's the next level up. I passed the JLPT 4, which is really equivalent to the 5. Don't want to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. Anyway, that lasted about 6 months before a deep depression began to fold over me here in Japan. Imagine that. Rich, free, young, relatively speaking, healthy, and deeply, deeply depressed. This was going into 2004. My decision at that time was that I needed to do something. So I started my antique business, which I wanted to do all along because I liked antiques. And I did that successfully, ran that business into the ground for 5 years. It took me 5 years to run it into the ground, to burn through all the money until we were broke and in debt. And that's a whole other story. I don't need to go down that road. That then led me to back to America. That led me to writing the book. That led me to becoming the person that I am now, humbled by failure, crushed by failure, and like a phoenix, resurrected, so to speak, through my willful efforts to make something of my life. All that is secondary to the point that it's 2003 all over again in 2025, insofar as that I came, remember, think about the bullet points here, 2003, came to Japan, took a year off, I was free, I had fun for a couple of months, and then I started to get really down, and I got depressed 6 months in. I mean, really seriously depressed 6 months in, and then I started my eBay business to address that. Here I am, 2025, arrived, a couple of months of fun, started to question what the hell I was doing, and now 7 months in, I resurrected my business. Now, really, I started the business about a month ago, so it's exactly on time, 6 months in. Now, what do they say about history rhyming, right? This is not a rhyme. This is an exact mimic. This is exactly what I did before. Not unfortunately. Interestingly, though, I've come into this round 2 like a boxer who's entered the max after getting his clock block is knocked out, getting his teeth knocked out in the first. Maybe like with a prize fighter goes out and gets beat up by a boxer who is better, and then goes back and trains and is ready and comes back for round 2 with some surprises in his hands, right? That's what this is like now, because I've come back to Japan, experienced the exact same thing, but I've got 2 main things in my back pocket that are to help me. One, I've got going alone in my back pocket, and the Good Life Creed. So I have values, I have principles, I have objectives that I'm striving towards, and I have a disciplined approach, namely through these videos that I make every day at 5:30 in the morning to examine and reflect upon my life. This is what allows me to be in control and in the driver's seat. The second thing, the huge thing, is that I've already got 5 years of experience as an antique dealer in my back pocket. I don't have to learn the ropes again. I know how to be an antique dealer in Japan. In fact, I'm doing it in exactly the same community with exactly the same sources that I had before. And I'm resurrecting my old eBay store, which has something like close to 8,500 reviews on it. And I'm resurrecting the store, and I've got the cachet of all of that credibility weighing into it. Plus, in all that time, eBay, I'm also on YouTube on the Fourth Wall store, but I'm starting to realize more and more that that's going to be more of a boutique. eBay is going to be the engine, because also in the last, 20 years, something like that, in the last 22 years, 23 years, eBay has really changed, and they're a much better selling venue than they were before. Back then, and I used to remember when I was a seller on eBay, I used to think, they've got this thing gamed to take advantage of their sellers through all the fees that they did. They weren't, because it was the only game in town. It was just eBay, right? I mean, that was it. Now they got eBay, Amazon, Google, and not to mention the plethora of independent websites, e-commerce platforms that can be set up through venues like Shopify, etc. eBay had to survive in that milieu. They had to redo their things. So now they're not like that at all. They still have the marketplace, but they've refined their offering to keep the sellers in the platform, right? Because we could easily go off and start our own damn Shopify store or wander off to Amazon and say this to eBay. So they've changed. So now I realize I came back. Not only am I mature here, not only am I experienced, having done this before, but the eBay marketplace has changed. And it is very much favorable for sellers that are willing to take the time and the effort to do a good job and to take good care of their customers. And I put on that old slipper, that old eBay slipper, like a pair of leather loafers that have been sitting there waiting for me for 22 years. Someone had been oiling them all along. They're not cracked, they're not weathered, they fit like a freaking foot glove. That's kind of gross. So that's what I mean by 2003 all over again. Absolutely stunned that this is happening. And I'm stunned by the fact that I have recreated myself again. I'm living out exactly the same model, although this time without the depression. Thank God. Oh, dang. I've suffered from periodic depression all of my life. It comes in waves here and there, and I don't necessarily know that it's necessarily an issue in some cases. I'm talking just me now, right? For me, depression has been kind of like like a light going on the dashboard of the car, like the check oil light, check engine light going on. When I get depressed, I'm like, oh, check engine light went on. Okay, I need to do something about it. Need to do something, right? I don't just sit there. I look at it as a sign to do something in just about all forms. Now, I know that there are types of depression that come as a result of biochemical imbalances, or I don't know what's going on. I'm no doctor, I'm no psychiatrist, I don't know what, and that I don't know anything about that. But I do know that there's some forms of depression that I've experienced that I can address through proactive, considered efforts to make improvements to my life. And I know that now, experiencing 2003 all over again, sans depression, is just because of that. Because I've made all those efforts, and it freaking took me 22, 23 years to address that, but I finally have. And luckily in time to hopefully live a couple more years in peace. So now let's go on to the next one. The next note is really interesting, as if the first one wasn't interesting enough. The first one is, I had last night my first sleepless night. Now, it wasn't a sleepless night altogether. Since I've come to Japan, since I basically announced my retirement at work, and work said, well, okay, Kurt's leaving, don't give him any more work, I've slept pretty well. Because the stress level just, almost as immediately after announcing my retirement, the stress level just, ooh, it's like someone went to like someone had the volume on too high in the stereo. And it's this awful booming noise. And I announced they turn that damn thing down. And they turned it down, and I was at peace. I've slept well. In fact, if you follow these videos, you know that I used to say, at the start of these things, I used to say, I'm going to review the last 24 hours, last night, how I slept, and the day before, because how I was sleeping was so problematic and such a part of my well-being that I had to review that. And I would always frequently say, you know, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I would have had just as many notes to talk about my inability to sleep, the fact that I was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and panicking and sitting there and fussing and fuming about the coming day. All that went away until last night. 3 a.m., I woke up staring at the ceiling, and it took me about 15 minutes to realize it's back. My sleepless nights are back. They've returned. Oh no, first I panicked. I was like, what the hell is going on? Because this used to be a pattern. I used to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I get up at 4 a.m. every morning. I have for years. So I wake up at 3 o'clock or maybe 2:30 in the morning and lay there for an hour and a half before it was time to get up. And I thought, oh my God, it's back. What's going on? But then I realized something was different. I wasn't laying there awake because I was panicked about the coming day. I was laying there because I was excited about the coming day, and my mind was going over all the things I'm going to do today to with my business. Because I've told you before in my last couple of days, this business that I'm running is work minus the stress. There's zero stress involved in this. Because first of all, I'm keeping it under control. Second of all, I don't have to do this. This is just gravy. This is just fun. I don't have to, I'm not paying the rent with this business. I'm not putting my kids through school. I'm not putting groceries on the table. All that stuff is being taken care of elsewhere through separate bank accounts, separate apparatuses of support, pension, retirement funds. That's all taken care of for the rest of my life. I don't have to worry about any of that. And all this stuff is just gravy on top of all of it. It's just fun. And it's really fun. I mean, I really enjoy doing this. I love going out and going to the antique store or the flea market and finding something like this and making a listing and sharing it around and making social media posts, and then someone buys it and I get to package it up and send it to them and throw in a couple of gifts, and off it goes, and write them a handwritten note, and off it goes, and then money's coming in, and I get to have a little extra money, and I can use that to take my wife and Yoko and Dad out to a nice dinner once a month or something like that. And I tell them, I say, hey, guys, I'm taking you out to dinner. My YouTube supporters bought you all this dinner. Thanks for being on my videos. And now I can tell them, my customers are helping as well because they're buying my damn stuff, right? That's fun. I was awake last night because I was awake with the same feeling that I had when I was a kid, anticipating Christmas morning. It was identical to that. And who doesn't want to have that in their life? Now, okay, if it sounds like I'm being overly flattering of my own life and my own circumstances right now, you're maybe new to the channel, you haven't seen this before, and you're thinking, what's this guy all about? He's just complimenting himself all day long. This is a personal journal video. This is where I lay out the facts, positive and negative, as they stand. So this is what you get here. If you watch enough of these, you'll see that I'm just as apt to point out when things are not going well, and laying out the facts about that as well. So you just happen to catch me on a good day and a good night. Okay, enough about that. Let's go on to the creed. My creed consists of 8 objectives that I use as the things that I'm trying to do in life, the things that I'm trying to fulfill to make a meaningful life. And these are as follows. The first thing I want to do is I want to be ready to die. I want to have good relationships, with my relationships in good shape with people, my life's work in good shape, and I want to have my affairs in order. And if those 3 things are met, then I'm ready to die. And they are, and I'm ready to die. The second thing I want to do is I want to make good and effective use of my time. I don't want to be wasting my time. Although it's funny now that I'm actively doing all of this stuff, I'm finding myself literally kind of having fun more. I'm sitting there, I'm actually watching Netflix. I've never been in it. I only kept Netflix around for the family to watch. I watched the whole Better Call Saul series. I know I'm like 5 years late to the Met, but I watched the whole thing. Now I'm watching a series called Mo. I'm actually doing it, and it's fun. I'm enjoying it. So that's a good use of time. that leisure time, because I got all this stuff. I'm ready to die, so might as well watch TV for a little bit. At 61 years old, I guess it's time to catch up with all the reruns of the shows I've never seen a single episode of South Park. I don't think I've watched a single episode of The Family Guy. These are like cultural, institutional things, right? And I don't know anything about it. The only shows I watch are a few YouTube channel shows with my wife, and we've watched together. I watched some things with my wife. We watched The Crown and a few other things on Netflix, but I'll only do that because I'm sitting next to her. We're eating dinner, watching it together. So then the third objective is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That's my things in my creed. 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions. 5 is to perform good actions. 6 is to recognize my true limits and true opportunity. 7 is to do just one thing at a time and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. And number 8 is to maintain my balance, which is not something that I achieve by virtue of conscious manipulation of my body and mind. Balance comes as a consequence of fulfilling the first 7 objectives. And that's why I put it at the end. It's like they bookmark each other. The number 1, being prepared to die, and number 8, balance. Really, those are the 2 most important ones, because if I'm ready to die, I'm going to be spending my day in balance. The rest in between is just making sure that I'm optimizing. It's the fine tuning. Make sure I'm optimizing, being slow and patient, good utilization of time, and keeping my values in mind. Now I'm going to read one principle, and I'm going to read today the principle with a funny name. There's a couple in here with really funny, weird names. I call it the Feast of Offal. It's a term that I came up with. A lot of these principles I borrowed from my reading over the years. A lot of Stoic ideas in here, although sometimes I rebrand them, relabel them. The Feast of Offal is mine, and it's wholesale mine. And in the last 3 days, we've covered 3 principles, and I told you that these 3 principles, they go in order. They build upon an order. The first is, life will not go well. Life's going to be hard. The horror show. Life's going to be awful, horrible, terrible sometimes. That which must be borne, carried, held, endured. So you see how that builds? Life's going to be hard. It's going to be terrible sometimes. We're going to have to deal with that and carry it as adults. Number 4 is the final of this set of 4, called the Feast of Offal. Offal is a word that sometimes requires a little definition. If you think of the butcher's art, cutting up meat, making steaks to put out, to lay out for sale. Offal is the stuff that you don't lay out for sale. It's what's left over from the butcher's art that you would grind up into sausages or dispose of or make into dog food or something like that, right? It's the stuff that you can't put out, tendons out for sale. No one's going to buy that. Offal. So the Feast of Offal basically is imagining a banquet of all the stuff that you wouldn't want to eat, but not meat. I'm talking about offal being the outpouring of our humanity or into the world around us. The way that we're doing so, we're sharing the stuff that later we're going to regret that we did. It's when we raise our voice and say something out of turn or without thinking or too quickly or insensitively that we later end up going to the people in our lives and say, I'm kind of sorry that I said that. I wasn't thinking. I was in the heat of the moment, the passion. That's the Feast of Offal. The Feast of Offal is when we don't fail to use temperance to control our internal activities, and it spills out for others to hear and soils them. The reason I think of it, call it a feast, is that it's kind of like you're splattering this yucky stuff around, and then people kind of inhale it or it goes in their mouth, and then they've got it in them, and it makes them sick. And then, because if I blow up in front of my family, that sets my family off a little bit. And then maybe at school, my daughter will blow up in one of her friends because Emily's sensing disharmony at home. You see what I mean? It passes on. It's like a virus that goes on. You don't want to spread the feast. You don't want to engage in the feast. You don't want to spew it out. We want to use #temperance to control our emotions and find a better way through, utilizing the remaining principles. So let's read the Feast of Offal, which I also call the banquet of our suffering, because it all yields from suffering. And here's a quote from the Bible. A fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it till afterwards. That's Proverbs 29:11. This strange meal consists of the waste and byproduct of unreasoned and unprincipled living, which we sometimes discard like filth where we live, think, and act. Every time we become confused, frustrated, upset, or we are then spilling out our personal offal onto the world, spreading the filth of our hot, raw emotions onto everyone within range of our upset. The curious thing is that so many then take up the filth we've flung at them to then consume it with seeming relish, making themselves immediately sick in the process and causing them to begin their own reciprocal feast of offal. Spreads from one to another throughout the waking day and even at night while we dream our emotions into life, an awful banquet of filth, soiling deeply our peace and better living, poisoning our lives and the lives of everyone we know. I wish to cover my mouth and nose instead, throughout the foul excess of undisciplines and my careless consumption of the emotions of others. I will neither offer nor consume the feast. So it's also an important part of it is to recognize when someone else is engaged in spewing out their own offal and to not consume that, to control our consumption of that. It's also an important part of that. Okay, I've covered that. God, for the next 24 hours, what am I going to do? I am busy. Oh my gosh. I had 3 orders come in last night while I was asleep. That added to the 2 from 5 orders to fill. It's Wednesday. I want to get them all filled and shipped out before the weekend comes. I'm really busy. One of the things that's different about the way I'm operating my business now is I'm operating it. Before I operated it with kind of like a juvenile fashion, right? I wanted the visceral, I wanted the endorphin hit of a sale. And I found stuff, I listed it in a way that would keep the churn going, but it wasn't efficient churn. I was neither giving my customers good value, nor was I earning myself a buck, which you can do. You can actually, there's ways to use customer good value and you can earn a buck. Before I know how to do that, I was just engaging in that better way of doing business when my business failed in the 2008 economic crisis. So I took that knowledge with me now, and I'm operating my business better. And as a result, now it's starting to turn on. The heat, like the sun coming over my shoulder here. It's starting to, the business is heating up. I've actually got more sales than I need, than I want. I got more sales than I want because I really do want to throttle it back a little bit. Optimally, I would like to ship no more than 1 item a day. Literally, list 2 items, list an antique item, and list an inventory item, 2 in the morning, and then ship 1 thing in the afternoon. I'm sitting here with 5 orders on my pop. I'm going to tune it back a little bit. Tune it back means raise the prices a little bit, you know. Cut down the marketing a little bit, things like that. It's a good dilemma to have, right? So I'm going to be working hard today. And that's what I'm going to do. But for now, I'm going to wrap this up, read comments, and get out and do regular exercise, which I skipped yesterday because I didn't have time when I finished this. There was like 5 minutes to get up to the radio exercise, and there wasn't. Hi, Robert. Good morning. Good morning, Tim. Rainy day here today. Currently 9:39, 16.1 C, and 92% humidity. See, 16 and 92% where you are. I'm at 95. Earlier it was 24 and 85%, Tim, when I first started. Now it's 25 and 85. 25 degrees and 85%. So the humidity is unchanged. The temperature has gone up 1 degree. Where you are, it's really humid. The temperature is pretty nice. Robert says hi to Tim. Hi to Robert. Humidity 32 C, so that's pretty hot. And 45 humidity. What is that? Okay. Sorry, I pushed a button by accident. Uh, you've renewed your sense of purpose. I'm very happy about it. Yes, I have. I have hit the reset button. I found my purpose. My purpose is to be actively engaged. And the best way I know to be actively engaged is work. Now, could I actively engage it with something else? Certainly. But I'm gonna coast with this for a while and enjoy it. And remember, I also have this problem that I have to service my daughter's college debt for roughly another year. This is going to give me a chance to solve that problem too. Hard work for the next year will allow me to service my daughter's college debt until Social Security kicks in, and we'll be clear to the end of life. Tim says life experience counts for a lot, and learning from past mistakes. It sure does. They do indeed. And Robert agrees. There's Evelyn. Hi, Evelyn. Heat wave in New York City, and people won't stop complaining about it. Robert says depression is a companion that I action in the direction I wish to, especially when you don't feel like it. Feel free to, Robert. Robert says hi to Evelyn. Evelyn says hi to Robert and Tim. There's Gerald. Hi, Gerald. Hello, Kurt. Received my tea order today. Thanks for additional crackers. I want to order the loose tea. Is that only on your eBay store? Yes. So what I'm doing, guys, is let me just take a moment to explain this. So um, I, when I first started off doing this, I didn't want to do merchandise. I wanted to do antiques alone because I think you've heard me say this before. I don't want to have a store where you're coming into a beautiful curated antique store and like there's antique, 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 and crackers. It breaks the magic, right? There's this store in Shimizu that we go to that they've got this antique store in this beautiful old Showa era apartment building, and they've curated the whole experience. It's like walking back in time, right? I don't want to have a can of Pepsi. So what I'm doing is the fourth wall store is the store where I'm having the only thing in the fourth wall store, which is technically my eBay store, the only thing in it that's not antique is the green tea, kakinotani, the one type of senbei. That's because I want people to be able to have a chance to, if they buy I want them to be able to buy the tea from that store, because that's kind of a cultured thing. But then I also want them to get rice crackers to go with it. Everything else, including the antiques are all duplicated over on eBay. eBay is my merchandise platform. So yeah, all that stuff is over on eBay, and I won't be keeping any merchandise over there. So the pricing is a little bit different. Well, it's not different because it's not on eBay. Um, you'll find that the prices are the same. I guess I don't need to say that the prices are different. eBay is a whole different animal, and I have to accommodate the eBay seller fees. So that's there as well. So yeah, to answer your question, Gerald, the loose leaf tea is over there, and boy, it is selling fast. I am selling so much of that stuff. I was down at the tea factory yesterday. It was like the second day in a row I went down, and she was like, "You're back again?" I'm saying, "Yeah, people are buying that stuff all over the place." Jerry, and anyone that's interested, I just yesterday implemented, and I'll be starting to talk about this on my advertising. I've now become a free shipping shop. So free shipping on every order forever. And so keep that in mind. So the prices that you're looking at now include free shipping. So hopefully that'll help. Tim says, thankfully never suffered depression, but stress and anxiety through work was something I don't wish to experience again. Nightly panic attacks was awful. Thankfully all gone, now in retirement. I know those nightly panic attacks, Tim. I remember waking up in the middle of the night, hyperventilating and, you know, almost crying out for help. It was just awful. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It was terrible. Jeez. I'm really glad that I had those experiences, even though they were awful, because it lends a level of true empathy to others and the experiences that they may have. Because I always thought I was a person that was mindful and could control what's going on in my life, and then it's just sometimes it's got a friggin' mind of its own. Robert says hi to Jerry. Jerry says, I drink green tea before bed or a sip of NyQuil to fall asleep if necessary. Jerry, this loose leaf tea, and this is not me trying to be a salesman, this is just stating the facts. It's a different kind of a beast. You'll want to when you steep it, you'll want to let it steep a little bit longer. Um, it's like, okay, some of the tea that I bought, the loose leaf tea, has like almost like a matcha powder in there, and so when you put it in there, it almost instantly, it's ready to drink. This isn't like that. There's not a lot of matcha style powder in there. And it sounds like, when I'm saying it sounds like it's a low quality tea. This is really, really high quality tea, and you really need to let it steep. So if you buy some and you give it a try, let it sit. I had it before bed last night. I did the same thing like you. I have it before I go to bed, and I haven't been drinking this tea. I was drinking some other stuff that we were getting from downtown, and I just switched back to consuming my own stash now, and um, rich flavor. And this is, I mean, the tea maker, the guy that makes this tea, eighth friggin' generation tea master. Um, in the family, he's the eighth generation. This stuff's really good. And Jerry says hi to Robert, and Tim says still 93% humidity. Temp has dropped to 50. Your temp is going down while mine is rising. All right, everybody. Well, I've gotten through everything I needed to cover for today. Thank you for dropping by to have a look. I appreciate everybody that stopped by. Be safe, but not too safe. And looks like I've got enough time I can make it to radio exercise. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.